We're from ImpactUA program. We're delighted to welcome you and to present our event. Guys, first of all, thank you for joining our event today. By being here, you're making a meaningful contribution to Ukraine, to democracy, and to peace. Thread by thread, together, we are building a better community, and we believe that the young generation can change the world. That is why you're here. Thank you.
And today as well, we would like to hear your thoughts and opinions on how does it feel to live in Ukraine, in the country that fights for its freedom every single day. We're interested in hearing what you think could be improved in terms of economic and social and other factors of living and working in Ukraine, as well as your opinions on how we can together, through international partnerships and local collaborations, to improve and rebuild Ukraine in general. And to do so, we have the following agenda. Excited to welcome youth Ukrainian delegates.
I'm also really happy that we have the so-called, bridge between the youth delegates of the present generation and from the last year. Unfortunately, my colleague Polina wasn't able to join today, but I believe I can speak on behalf of both of us. In terms of my engagement with the young people of Ukraine and abroad, I would, summarize that experience in 3 words. That's uniqueness, engagement, and probably some hecticness, because there are lots of events, things, activities, priorities going around, and sometimes it's too difficult to simply pick one thing that you will need to do as a youth delegate. But still, at the same time, it was an extremely rewarding experience that taught me how to, simultaneously work with diplomats from different countries in one place in the world, then draft a concept note while listening to some president's speech at the United Nations General Assembly, then maintain online communication with people from your support office 24/7, review their tasks, give comments, at the same time network with other people, how to maintain energy since 6 a.m. till 2 a.m. Throughout the day, and still have some energy in the evening to network with other people. So that was a truly wonderful experience that taught me lots of things, and most importantly allowed me to exercise my abilities and skills to the best as a youth delegate and be able to represent Ukraine internationally on quite a good level.
That's a lot of experience that me and Tatiana still needs to come through the next year. But hello everyone, my name is Dorina. I'd like to know, audience, more who is coming from the US. If you can please raise your hand. Wow, okay. And from Ukraine, this is all the rest, right? So if you raise your hand. Okay, good. That's very interesting because I'll tell you a story very shortly about myself. I moved to abroad in 2022 to work actually in tech consultancy, but I have a background in international economic relations. Very also like hectic life brought me, and also because of the full-scale invasion, I had to move to another country, so chose to be in the UK for 1 year. And after this, I lived there for more than a year and moved back to work to Kiev. It was not some kind of a specific program that some of them now have. I just was looking for the opportunity specifically to work for the Ministry of Digital Transformation. I enjoyed it so much. It was so modern. It was for young people. The minister was and is still young, etc., etc. So I decided to build my way and to start working. I moved back, I'm saying not from London to here, but from London to Cabinet of Ministers, because it was also like 24/7 work when I had to work and leave almost there. But it was the craziest and one of the best experience I've ever had. In parallel, I was reflecting what brought me back to Ukraine, and a lot of ties came and connected me was with the Ukrainian Students League, which I helped found back in 2020 when we just started it with our institute, and how we united students, Ukrainian students in Ukraine. They traveled from different cities. We did several projects. We have a cool students government in Ukraine and also in different cities. And we established a charity organization also based on the Ukrainian Students League, of course, in 2022, and ever since it was very, very popular. I had the amazing experience with the Youth Council under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs together with Jan. That's how I knew Jan and Lisa Kaidash, so I moved back to policy. So a lot of youth experience that brought me to the best memories, I would say, and momentums that brought me where I am right now, and I want to share this experience when I'm traveling to the US together with Tanya. Now I transformed also part of my work into it's called the headquarters of the Ukrainian youth worldwide, where we work with Ukrainian youth that's now residing abroad, the way I used to be, and I noticed that there was a bit of a gap between Ukrainians in Ukraine, Ukrainians abroad. Some of them fled, some of them like an old diaspora that we're also going to work with. So it's a very interesting journey, and I encourage you to also take a look at it and get interested in it a little bit more. And I'm sure that host of today's event will help you with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone. My name is Tatiana, and I'm the co-delegate of Dorina, and we're the youth delegates of this year, and we have a really great responsibility on our shoulders. And you have such a long past. I'm the youngest from this trio, and I was at school when the war started. There I wanted to study medicine, but especially in that year, in 2022, when I would say the world order go as it was, so the war in Ukraine has already started. So I decided to do something in international relations. Especially, I was really interested into the work of the United Nations, and I entered the university in Kyiv Mahila Academy. And this year, I graduated with honors with the program of international relations. And still, I am so proud of it, and I'm sure that it will work, especially in this sphere, because the work continues, and especially this path that I have already started 4 years ago, it continues, and it is essential to be into this politics to help with this situation. So, as I have already mentioned, I studied international relations, and there, especially in Kyiv Mahila Academy, I was interested in politics. I went to the Anman Club. Maybe someone knows what does it mean, the modeling of the United Nations. Maybe someone, okay. It's like, the modeling of the organization. There are several formats. There are MUN and MUN, and especially the biggest format is like MUN, because it's a total copy of the work at the UN. So the same procedure, the same documents. So I had some experience in the United Nations, especially in New York, because we had our delegation from the university, especially in this students' conference in 2024 and then 2025. But the main thing is that we have represented some other countries, but it was a great opportunity to connect with other people from all over the world. So it's like a young youth delegation, but we represented other countries. Our delegation has represented Fiji and Albania, and yes, we're really into their politics, and it was really difficult. However, now that's a responsibility to represent our country. In some cases it's easier, but that's a bigger responsibility, of course, and in some other ways it's really difficult too. So, and I had a lot of internships, especially in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and into the Embassy of Ukraine and French Republic. Also, I studied on my Erasmus in French in Sciences Po University, so it was really great. I had a lot of communications with people there. And then I decided, so I really want to continue my path. So the youth delegate was my dream to achieve it and really to promote young voices, especially in this international arena. And my previous experience really helped me to go to this point where I am now. So we have a lot of work to do with the arena, and our mandate has already started. So we are really into it, and I believe that we will do a lot of things. And as minimum, we'll continue the great work of the previous generations of this program. Thank you.
What are your insights from the US as a Ukrainian Youth UN delegate, since you've spent so much time there last year? And what is the image of Ukraine you perceived from Americans while traveling?
Do we stick to the United States only, or we can also talk about the UN?
You can also talk about the UN.
Wonderful. So, starting with the United States, it's really interesting to compare because, you know, at the time when we were delegates with my colleague and when we went to the United States for 2 times, one was in autumn 2025, the second one was in spring this year, we encountered you know, such a drastic political change in the United States if you compare that with the beginning of the previous year, because Ukraine was actually perceived. Okay, we'll have one mic. Ukraine was actually perceived on better terms among the Republican audiences, especially from conservative Republicans, way better than it was in the beginning of 2025. So the situation has changed. And from my conversations with different analysts in DC, with members of congressional offices, including the ones that belong to the Republican senators and representatives, Ukraine was perceived on a serious level. The United States at the time was interested in cooperation with Ukraine, especially in terms of security issues, including drone protection, high-tech, defense technologies, etc. So that was something interesting to observe. And especially in mentioning the issue of young people, I felt great empathy from the people of the United States, from members of Congress, from staff members in Congress. That was actually delightful to see how engaged they were in those conversations and which attitude they had towards Ukraine. So in terms of the United States, the picture is quite clear. We still have a lot of work to do. But, you know, my expectations in some points were, you know, overaccomplished, if you may say that. However, speaking about the UN, since I have ended my mandate, I can speak about that more openly. In terms of the United Nations, the issue of youth policy and young people remains more declarative. The United Nations does not have a direct representation of young people and what they actually think and what problems they actually encounter. Some global issues, yes, but whenever you turn to peace and security issues, that's like a completely another point. I had an interesting story when we arrived with my colleague to New York in 2025. There was a global campaign launched by the United Nations in support of the maintenance of peace and security around the world. And there were a series of videos with young people from different countries, you know, speaking about the importance of peace, how young people feel about that. Guess how many Ukrainians and Ukrainian young people were represented in those videos? Who can guess? 0. No one from Ukraine. And 1 person from Russia. And that's something that, you know, picked my attention because I cannot comprehend how one can develop a global campaign on peace and security, have a person from Russia without anyone from Ukraine, and still somehow sense that it would be fine to launch a campaign with only like 1 young person from Russia and no one from Ukraine. And I'm not even speaking about the difference of difficulties that the young people in Ukraine face compared to Russia and the nature of those difficulties. Because if you speak about the difficulties that young people in Russia face, that's because of the actions of their government. That's the war of choice for them. But for Ukraine, it's not a war of choice. It's simply something that we cannot deny, and that's an existential question for us. So I was really frustrated with engagement in terms of young people on the sidelines of the United Nations. Of course, there are events. Of course, there are forums. There are public opportunities for young people to come to the United Nations headquarters, you know, speak, take pictures with the Secretary General sometimes his assistants, Undersecretaries General, but besides that, for me, there was no real engagement and no direct impact on the decision-making, especially the ones involving young people. So that's the difficulty that you will also have to face as you delegates, although the United Nations is a little bit different from, central governmental authorities as we perceive it in different countries. Being a youth delegate for me is not about decision making in the UN, but rather using that as a platform for narrative building, foreign engagement, and actually promoting the true narratives that are important to Ukraine, as well as advancing our national interests. So that's my impression of youth engagement in the United Nations. Unfortunately, it's not that bright as some people might think of, but still, that's the reality we must all accept.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. We can see that we have a lot of things to work on international level in Ukraine. Well, the second question will be to Darina. I might ask you, given your experience, how can young people abroad promote Ukraine on an international level, and which tools will be needed from the government or NGOs?
Okay, there's two layers here, and I would like to build on the thing that Jan mentioned on narrative building. For example, if we come to the UN, to any kind of authority, we interact with embassy, either here, foreign embassy, or we go abroad. It's very important to, I would say, align it with some of the official either news that we have, or consult with our MFA and just experts that are super deep in foreign policy, and they would know what kind of very strong messages and narratives we need to push when it comes to officials, for example. It's on one hand, but on the other hand, when we talk about young people, and I have a network of Ukrainian youth organizations all over the world. They are in Japan, in Europe, in US, Canada, anyone. The experiences and the events are super different, but it's very, very important that they are still there, and we support them from Ukraine, for example, and young people do something abroad. We volunteer, we talk, and we can do demonstrations still near the embassies on 24th of February on the Independence Day of Ukraine, but we're abroad. It's very important that locals and foreigners see that all the time, because if it won't be for Ukrainians that care about these days, so why would foreigners care about it? I just came back from vacation, if you can see from my appearance. But anyway, it was very, very interesting for me to get out of the bubble, the Ukrainian bubble, that I forgot about it a little bit when I was abroad. But I came to Spain, let's say, and when I meet someone, I am very proud to say, oh, I'm from Ukraine, and I expect people to ask me, oh, how's the situation like there, etc., etc. And I got several comments from people. Okay, I say I'm from Ukraine, and I expect something good maybe for them to tell me in reverse, and they say as a joke, ha ha ha, I'm from Moscow. Just as a joke to me, and I'm standing there, what? And the person is not a European nationality, but yeah, he jokes like this. And I'm getting oh, was that a joke? Okay, let's move on, let's do something else. Then I get another joke the same day from another person saying he knew that I worked in the NGO that works with the government, so it complements the work of our ministries, and it's super cool, and I tell about the projects. And then he jokes out to one of his friends that, oh, she works for the Russian government, haha, that's so funny. And I'm okay, the conclusion of the day is that if I tell that I'm from Ukraine, it is just autonomous to what Russia does, for example. And that is so much more. If I give up, and if I give up this joke, for example, if I say, okay, you leave it, you're rude, let's go somewhere else, I take my girlfriends and we go somewhere else, it won't work, definitely. They won't know that it was offensive, that we are so much more than some kind of opposition, or that they hear it on the news somewhere. We need to come there, we talk to them, we share, we can show photos, we can do an actual event. Why, for example, Europeans are more, I would say, sympathetic to, for example, Ukraine, or why they can relate to us more. One of the reasons is that I think civil society did a good job on showing good cases, what Ukraine was, what the lessons were, how the war actually went. We did a tremendous job on social media to show it to Europeans, and it reached them out, but it was mostly like a momentum. 2022, 3, 4, when, for example, United 24 were super active. We need to take it and bring it forward, and especially with young people, and as we grow, we go to the universities, we move around countries, we travel back to Ukraine, then we go back. It's very important to keep this momentum about Ukraine and actually do something. So we go talk to the foreigners, we explain the situation, not just give it up, or we don't, like very basic thing, but we even don't talk about it right now, but we don't speak Russian anywhere, not in Ukraine, and especially not abroad, because foreigners will ask, oh, then if Russian and Ukrainian are similar languages, why would you fight? Oh, and build this argument that you all know about. So I would say like the same conclusion for actually for all the Ukrainians, especially for residing abroad, to build this momentum about Ukraine and to interact with foreigners. But for young people specifically, I think the key would be to keep our energy and to talk to young people of that foreign countries, because their mindset will be built on the experience that you meet with them. Like you tell this experience, and then they grow, they may be decision makers in their country, like if they're political, they want to have political careers, so they will remember, oh, when I was 18 I met this guy or girl from Ukraine and she showed me like how the things really were, so maybe my decisions will happen not the way that Ukraine will not benefit from, for example. Or even if they build a family is also important, and I think cool to speak about Ukraine, because really we have cool case studies, experiences, some things that we need to show off a little bit and sell a little bit, but everyone does it, and especially like the US is super good at selling. I think we could learn from it as well.
Thank you so much for your response. And the next question will be addressed to Tanya. And you have already briefly shared of some of your expectations for the year, and I would like to ask you to elaborate on what do you expect to implement for Ukraine during your mandate, and how do you think your previous experiences in Ukraine and abroad can help you with that?
Thank you very much for this question. That's a really big one, but I will try to be as honest and as precise as it can be. I totally agree with my colleagues. So generally, the main narrative and I guess the main role of this mandate, I guess, is to build bridges between Ukrainian delegates and the youth delegates from all over the world, to fix Ukrainian position, to give them a perception of that Ukraine, which are in what position are we now. But however, we are not only a victim, and that's a really big slogan that I want to promote. We're not only a victim, we're a platform for opportunities, and that's a really great case, because Ukraine is not only in the UN to share that we have been bombed or something like this. Yes, of course, because Russian Federation is an aggressor and it's permanent for us. However, we have a lot of things to bring to the table. I know that a lot of cases of Ukrainian youth, they are really incredible. In case of reforming even government, in case of developing something, in case of startups, in case of their, I don't know, initiatives or etc. There are a lot of things that youth have already changed. They have taken on the responsibility for this war, and they are moving, they are changing Ukraine. So, of course, we're living in a big tragedy, and we need to promote it that, yes, of course, it lasts, and that we have no changes in it, and still we are under the bombings or something like this. However, we have something to propose to the world, and of course, it's like Ukraine is giving something, and of course, we're getting some huge ideas from other youth delegates. As you know, a lot of youth delegates, they're coming not only to promote their country's position, of course, they are coming with some ideas, because there can be some houses of the NGOs, or some consultative departments under some ministries, or they are active young people from their countries and they have their ideas. So the main thing is, it's not only, okay, as my colleagues have already said, that the platform. Of course, the mechanism of the UN, they're really difficult, and we have no such opportunity because of bureaucracy of the United Nations to promote something through the resolutions, especially in the General Assembly, because they're only recommentative. And as you know, in the Security Council, we have a veto power, and that's trouble. But the UN, as an organization, is a great platform to share these ideas. So the main thing is to bring the stories of Ukrainian youth, some development that we can share with the world, and to engage other youth delegates that can help us from the promotion of human rights and some technologies to some psychological support or etc. All these young people, they have their own idea that they want to share, and that's a great opportunity to collaborate with them, to get their ideas and of course ensure that they can be implemented in Ukraine. So that's an ability of Ukrainians to cooperate with them and ensure that a lot of their their new ideas, or I'm too sorry for the word idea, there are a lot of word ideas. So they will promote them for Ukraine. A lot of people, I guess, will go back to Ukraine because we are the platform of opportunities. There is a big space and we can contribute to the recovery of Ukraine. A lot of people, they have some projects connected with ecology. And of course, in the case of Ukraine, in the case of eco-rebuilding or eco-recovery, it's really on time. And we can get these ideas and bring that people to Ukraine. And that's an idea of what we want to share to the world and of course to get for Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers, guys. Well, now we'll have open questions to all three delegates, and you'll just pick up the question and speak about it randomly. So the first one is, how can you contribute to Ukraine's international collaborations, engage more young support for the country, and raise awareness about Ukraine? And do you have any tips for our audience?
Could you please repeat the first part of the question?
Sure. How can you contribute to Ukraine's international collaborations abroad, engage more young support for the country, and raise awareness about Ukraine? If you have any tips for our audience, because we still have a lot of international people as well.
Wonderful. Firstly, how many Ukrainians we have here? Please raise your hands. Wonderful. How many foreigners? Good. I will split that in two. So, for Ukrainians, whenever you go abroad, you have to understand that you are youth ambassadors of Ukraine.